Hi guys, so here's the final video and reveal of the Revell Crusader chopper in 1/12 scale. Just to go over the bits and pieces on it, the side stand and the headlight bowl were left in original kit chrome, which I thought looked quite nice. On reflection, I would have preferred the side stand to be a bit more matching with the gearbox and crankcase, but I can put up with that, I think. But the engine, crankcase, the gearbox, and the connecting plate for the primary drive and the rocker covers are done in polished aluminium, airframe aluminium, Halclad, I think, and that's over a grey gloss base so that the shine wasn't too glossy. I'm not as pleased with the finish on that as I thought I would be, to be honest, but it's not bad. The barrels and cylinder heads were painted with AK True Metals iron and buffed. I'm really not impressed with that as much as the AK True Metals aluminium. That gives a much better finish, the aluminium, and buffs to a much nicer shine. So no, I'm not hugely impressed with that, but because it didn't look what I was hoping for, with the tops of the fins to be much shinier, and unfortunately it didn't work like that, so I gave that a coat of clear, the floor polish clear or future, whatever you'd call that, and then used a dark blue-grey oil wash to highlight between the barrels to give that a little bit of definition, a bit of depth. The main body colours, the rear fender home mud guard, the oil tank, the petrol tank, and the front fender home mud guard are painted in a Revell metallic 51, I think it was. It's mentioned in the last video, and it's either sunset or sunrise red. I don't know if that's a colour. Did I say Revell? Not Revell, it's a Humbrol metallic, if I did. I don't know if it's a colour that they still make now, but I picked that up from a bargain bin years ago, and it's the first time I've actually used it on a build. It's very striking and more of a sort of hot pink, as you can see, over a white primer. Over a grey primer it would probably be a bit darker and a bit more red, but I do like the colour. I think it's very sort of hot rod, very funky. And I then used a couple of the kit decals, the tribal type swirls, which this particular one is made for the shorter peanut tank, so conforming to some of the curves was a little tricky, and the decals are very thick, and they took a lot of several applications of microsol and sort of beating down with a cotton bud Q-tip to get them to conform, and there's still a couple of little wrinkles up here, but overall I'm quite pleased with that. And then the clear these parts were clear coated with zero lacquer clear, cellulose based clear. It's not a 2K, it's just a ready to spray, comes in a bottle. I showed you that in the last video as well, and that sprayed over very nicely, settled well and leveled out well, and that was left overnight and then given a gentle buffing with fine Tamiya polishing compound, and I think that looks quite nice. The saddle I painted initially in SS Camo Black Brown Vallejo, which is a very dark brown, then in base Shadows Flesh, also from the Vallejo range, and then a very that was sort of a heavy dry brushing of Shadows Flesh, and then a very light dry brushing just over the raised edges of Flesh Vallejo, from the Vallejo range, because they had that kind of leather type look that I was after, and I'm very pleased with the result of that. I think that does look very convincingly leather-like. The tyres, I sanded, there was a definite seam line along the front and the rear, so they were sanded to take that down a bit, but I didn't want them to look too worn, so I didn't sand them too much. And then they were masked off on the wheels and sprayed with Vallejo Ivory, I think it is. It's just a slightly off-white colour, so it's not too glaring a contrast of white to give them white wall tyres. And the spoke wheels painted red. So and this was done because I actually saw a full-size custom build with red spoke wheels and white walls, and I thought it looked really, really nice, and I wanted to replicate that. The frame and most of the other components are gloss black, Humbrol gloss black, and then the fork tubes are again aircraft aluminium over a gloss grey. Now ideally that could have done with being over a gloss black, make them a little more shiny, but by the by. The foot pegs were done in AK True Metals aluminium and buffed, and that one I quite like. As I say, I'm not so impressed with the iron. And the switch gear and the little pots for the brake and clutch fluid reservoirs also in aluminium. I'm going to spin this around. On this side, the air cleaner was done with AK True Metals aluminium and buffed, and then Tamiya Clear Red painted into the central portion of that. Originally I was just going to do the flame and maybe the edges, but I decided to fill the whole central portion in. I'm a little undecided on whether I like that or not, but there it is. The exhausts are painted in Humbrol enamel satin black, and then exhaust wrap is added. This exhaust wrap was made from a cloth, kind of like a J-cloth type material, which was plain white, and that was sort of rinsed out, wrung out, dried, and then stained in tea. I put a tea bag in a pot, put water on it, let that sort of steep for a while until it was a nice strong tea colour, and then I just sort of shoved the whole cloth in and left it there for 10 minutes. I think that could have probably taken another dunking in that, because it didn't take the colour quite as heavily as I'd thought, but overall I'm quite pleased with that. So we've got the wrapped exhaust effect there, and then down here you can just see we've got some thin red wire. This is from an old printer, IDE printer cable, going to the rear caliper and to the brake on there, and I'd also the front brake as well, coming down here into the brake caliper. And I'd forgotten to mention on that subject, moving back around here, that I'd also use the same wire to create HT leads, which are missing from the kit, and it's a very, very sort of obvious and noticeable exclusion from the kit, because the HT leads are very, very visible on this. Now on a faired bike, not so much, you can get away with it. The kit did come with covers for the primary drive, but I left that open because I think open primary drives with the thick drive belts look really nice. So I left that open, and then a little bit of detailing on the chain. So that's the kit. It's a nice sort of simple build together. A lot of seam lines to clean up, but I'd recommend it for anybody that likes motorbikes. A really nice kit, really fun, and lots of scope for creative license. You could scratch build bits, you could, as well as customizing with the bits that come in the kit. I've got several spare bits left over, sort of handle grips and a spare set of exhausts and a spare set of wheels and a spare petrol tank and that kind of thing. And you do only get the 2 mudguards and such, but I've got quite a few spare parts, so I could possibly utilise those on another build later. But it does give you plenty of scope for customisation, and you could even, things like the petrol tank, is paint 2 up and leave them just sort of sat in place, because they sit on pegs. This is glued on, but you could actually just sort of sit it on the pegs and do it so you could swap them if you wish, I guess. But overall, fun little build. The Crusader is still currently available. The other choppers in the range are no longer available, but you do see them on eBay, but they tend to fetch silly money for what they are, because detail-wise they're really not that good. So if you want a really, really nice detailed kit, then I would advise that you stick with the Tamiya, and you get much better value for money regarding detail. But if you want something that's fun with oodles of creative license to actually create your own custom, then one of these is lots and lots of fun. So at this point I will show you, we'll have a look at it on the revolving stand so you can see it from all angles and see the reflection from the paintwork, and then we'll have a look at some close-up photos. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next build videos.